Hello, distinguished friends and colleagues. This is Stuart Hamilton, the Pro-Life Activities Coordinator for the Archdiocese of Louisville, Kentucky, serving under Deacon Stephen Bowling. And this is 5 Minutes for Life, where we take 5 minutes to discuss one topic, one ministry, or one event that affects the pro-life movement here in the Archdiocese of Louisville. Well, this is a channel first. I am doing a movie review of The Sound of Freedom. I hope you bear with me because I'll probably go over a little bit on this one. I love movies. I love talking about movies. And I think this one is an interesting one to talk about. If you don't know anything about Sound of Freedom, this is the scrappy little movie that came out on July 4th and actually scooped Indiana Jones for the July 4th holiday box office. It made more money on July 4th than Indiana Jones, and the box office has not abated. People from all over the United States are going to see it. It's already made 5 times the amount of money it cost to make the film, and it's gotten all sorts of headlines. But I was avoiding going to see it, just so you know where I'm coming from. I did not want to go see this movie because I kind of thought that it might be one of those Christian movies. Now, let me explain once again so you know where I'm coming from. I don't like films produced by Christian film companies because oftentimes they are what I call message movies. They have good messages, but they have really bad writing, really bad acting. They look like crap. They don't deserve to be in a major motion picture theater. So I'm sorry if you like the type of movie like Fireproof or God's Not Dead 1 through 13. That is not my cup of tea. If I'm going to separate my hard-earned money from myself to go see it in a theater, I want it to look like it deserves to be in a theater. The other thing that I should say is I don't particularly like to see movies that are on super heavy subjects because I don't like to see dark things that go in my head and get trapped, and I don't like to cry in public, okay? That's probably a bigger deal because I don't mind rated R movies, but I don't like to cry in public, and certain movies get that. So where does Sound of Freedom stack up? Well, first of all, if you don't know anything about Sound of Freedom, this is the true story. It's based on true story where Jim Caviezel, who is the star of the film, he's most known for playing Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. He plays real-life Homeland Security Advisor Tim Ballard. Now, Tim Ballard got mixed up in a clandestine task force down in South America that uncovered a sex trafficking ring and saved dozens of children down there. So this film sort of confines its story to how did Tim Ballard get involved with that clandestine effort, and what were the mechanics of that effort that led to saving all these kids down in South America. The least you know about it, the better, so that you can stay away from spoilers. It is a very compelling story, and it's one of those things like, did this really happen? And yes, it did. And a very, very interesting story. So I was not going to go see it for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, but several of my friends reached out and said, this is a really good movie. You really need to take a look at it. So over the weekend, I went to Blank & Baker 16. They were showing it in one of their big theaters. And I was there a half hour ahead of time, and it was still nearly sold out. I had to sit right up front, so my head was all craned up like this. And in spite of that, I'm going to say this. This is a really good movie. I would say in terms of how it's made, how it's acted, not just Jim Caviezel, the entire supporting cast, it's well written, it's well directed, it's shot mostly on some sort of location. I mean, it's set in Honduras, and I would swear it was in Honduras where they filmed it. You see every cent up there on the screen, and you say, yes, this is worth paying to see. I would give it an 8 out of 10 stars in terms of the production value and it telling a compelling and interesting story. That's really what you want. You want the story to be well told and compelling, okay? And I particularly appreciated that it showed restraint. It's not a rated R movie, it's rated PG-13, and it showed restraint in 3 areas. Firstly, it did not show you what was happening to the children. That's the first restraint. It's a PG-13 movie. It was not graphic at all. It let the audience sort of fill in the gaps and connect the dots on what was happening with the children. And really, the fantastic children who were acting in this, they did such a good job in the film. They sold me. They really got my heart, right? And that led to number 2, a number 2 restraint. If the film wanted to, it could sucker punch you emotionally every 3 minutes and have you cry. I do not like to cry in public, and knowing this was a heavy movie, I really wasn't looking forward to it, but It really restrained itself. It kind of held itself back. And there are two or three scenes in the film that will get you, or at least you're going to be actively holding back a little bit. But it does not exploit those moments. It doesn't really just hit you over the head and make you cry over and over again. That kind of movie leaves you emotionally exhausted and saying, I'm never going to see this movie again. It didn't do that, thanks be to God. And thirdly, it was not preachy. It restrained itself not to be preachy either from a faith-based perspective or from a political perspective. This is a completely apolitical film. It's not coming from the right or the left. It's just showing you this one story and saying, how can we help? As a matter of fact, I think the film did a good job of showing, not telling, not being graphic. And here's the weird thing. Even though it's on a dark subject, it didn't feel particularly dark. I would say that it was hopeful. That may be the idea that Tim Ballard is still doing this work, and the idea that he's still out there helping kids. But it felt like that this industry can still be disrupted. That people can, normal people, can really do something to support getting rid of it worldwide. So, in my opinion, for all those reasons, it's a terrific movie. Solid 8 out of 10. I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece. I'm just going to say it's a great movie, well worth taking your groups to see. You should see it individually, but if you're the head of the Respect Life group, I would immediately get on the horn and see if you can't get a group of people to go see it, because this is the perfect kind of situation to go see the movie and then talk about its themes afterwards over coffee. I would even say that you could take a youth group to see it, older teenagers, right? Maybe sophomore and up. Even though it is not at all graphic, it does require a certain emotional maturity to get out of it what it would. But here's some of the things I would discuss. I would discuss, where does human trafficking affect Kentucky? The Paquita initiative in Catholic Charities deals with human trafficking in Kentucky, and you can actually talk about human trafficking, not just sex trafficking, but labor trafficking as well. And here's another thing, particularly with teenagers, that I think you could talk about with this film is, what are the elements of our culture that tends to sexualize youth, that tends to sexualize young people, because that's kind of the foundation of this sort of industry, is the sexualization of young people taken to a perverse degree. So you can talk about where our culture is guilty by implication in this, and I think young people would have a lot to talk about when it comes to that. So anyway, like I said, Respect Life groups, older teenagers, this would be a good film to go see with that. Now, I've heard that there are major publications that have written bad reviews for this film. I even read a couple of them, Rolling Stone, Washington Post. I think they're out of their mind. They clearly have an ideological axe to grind. This is a good movie, worth seeing. Okay, I've gone well over my time here, so I'll just say, if you like what I'm doing here, smash that like button, share this video with plenty of people, and hit the notification bell to know when other videos are coming out. If you want to, maybe check one of these videos I made about the recent Supreme Court religious freedom cases. Remember, every human life is worth fighting for, because every human life has dignity in the eyes of God. God bless you. We'll see you here next time.